I'm Jory Herman, and I'm one of the newest members of the Los Angeles Philharmonic double bass section.
This is David Moore. I'm a professor at the USC Thornton School of Music as well as a bassist in the LA Philharmonic.
This is Daniel Kimbro with the Jerry Douglas Band, among others.
Those are just a few of the many voices you're going to be hearing on today's episode, which is all about strings. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and today's episode is titled Choosing Strings, What's Right for You. And it's all about strings that are available from our sponsor, D'Addario Strings. And this episode is brought to you by D'Addario Strings. Certainly there are other string makers on the market. We all know that, but I like to take one maker and go deep on what's unique about each of their string variants and what might work best for you. So we're going to be hearing some perspectives from several D'Addario artists. You heard three of the names, and we've got several others as well. And we're going to be hearing a few short clips from my previous conversations with Lyris Hung, who's orchestral strings product manager at D'Addario, and Sabrina Brengel, who is the orchestral strings social media specialist at D'Addario and happens to be a bass player. So we're going to dive right in here. And again, thank you, D'Addario, for being now a longtime sponsor since 2016 of the podcast. First up is Lyris Hung on how strings actually work.
So on a very basic level, again, the string is vibrating. And when you pluck a string, as opposed to when you bow a string, the string is going into two different vibrational modes. So we talk about them slightly separately, though they're both kind of considered vibrational. When the string is vibrating, it's, obviously attached to it's touching your bridge, and that bridge is touching the top face of your instrument. And your instrument basically acting like an amplifier and taking those vibrations and amplifying them out through, the F holes and through the instrument itself, so you can hear the string as it interacts with your instrument. And with the two different ways of vibrational modes, with plucking, you've got sort of back and forth oscillating vibration. Like if you say, hey, imagine a string vibrating, it's, most people would sort of see it kind of just flopping back and forth, sort of side to side. But with a bow, it goes into something very specific called the slip stick motion, or the Helmholtz motion, named after the scientist who sort of codified it. And so it's a slightly different vibrational pattern. And it doesn't just do the side-to-side thing, because what it's doing is the string is sticking to the bow hair and slipping from the bow hair repeatedly very fast. And so that sort of back and forth motion under the bow creates sort of, I call it a whipping motion. It's almost like you're taking one end of a jump rope and sort of flicking it. And that creates this sort of wave almost.
Next up, we have Alexis Cuadrado, a past podcast guest. In fact, all these voices you'll be hearing are past podcast guests. And this is Alexis on Zyex strings.
Hey, Jason. How are you? Hope you're well. Thank you for asking me about the D'Addario strings and what do I like about the D'Addario strings. Well, I've been using them for about 6 or 7 years. I use the Zyex medium set. What I like about it is that for me it has provided sort of like a really good compromise. I like the feel under my fingers is great because it's sort of like a gutty feel. The strings are thicker than generally metal strings are. And I used to play with like a Olive G before and Spiracore, so it kind of like recreates that feel. And their strings are loose, they're not super tight, like definitely a lot less tight than any D'Addario metal steel strings. And I really like that part about it, that it just like, I kind of feel like the synthetic core strings have like this gutty kind of feel. Then they have a depth to them that I really like. At the same time, they have also a nice attack, especially for pizzicato, jazz pizzicato, which is what I do mostly. And at the same time, they also bow really well. My bow sticks to them greatly. I do have to clean the strings a few times if I'm bowing, because I like to cake my bow with quite a lot of rosin. But overall, they're just a great sort of like catch-all string for me. I would say the only thing that it's perhaps not as great about them is that every 6 months I feel like they start going out of tune, and then I think that I'm playing out of tune and what's wrong with me. And it's like, oh, the strings must be wearing out. And then I change them, and then they're great again with the new set. So that's all. Love those Zyex strings, and I'm very, very happy to be a D'Addario artist. They're great people, and very lucky about it.
Hi, this is David Moore. I'm a professor at the USC Thornton School of Music as well as a bassist in the LA Philharmonic. Gosh, I've been using D'Addario Kaplans for the past several years, the heavies especially in the orchestra as well as on the bass that I have at USC. I just really like the versatility that they give, especially dynamically. They just respond well in soft dynamics and well in loud dynamics that can really take anything that I can dish out. And they're just a really well-balanced string across all of my instruments. I've also used the Zyex strings more kind of in an experimental way. I'm honestly looking for sort of the combination in the sweet spot between the two of those, because I really like the ring and the response and the tension of the Zyex with some of the more conventional characteristics of the Kaplans. I'm hoping that that's something that's in the works someday in the future. Hope that helps.
I'm Jory Herman, and I'm one of the newest members of the Los Angeles Philharmonic double bass section. Last year I began using the D'Addario Kaplan strings and really love how they sound and what they can do. As a young bassist, my first memories of playing the instrument were actually on the D'Addario Helicore strings, so you could say that I've been using D'Addario products since about 1994. Throughout college and my early professional life, I tried many different types and gauges of strings, and even experimented with mixing and matching from different sets. I would put 3 strings from one set with the lowest string from another, or maybe just change out the top string or do half and half, but never was really fully committed to the entire set from a single brand. Kaplan strings, however, do everything that you need them to. They have a crisp articulation while remaining warm and resonant from top to bottom across all strings. They have an immediate and clear response without maxing out in the loudest section of the music, all while still being delicate and singing in the softest sections of the music. All around, they're an incredible set of strings for the orchestra bass section.
Next up is Sabrina Bringle on what the process of developing a new string looks like.
Developing a new string can take anywhere between like 6 months and 2 years, just because we're never working on just one project at a time. There's often a lot of, optimization of the machinery of different sizes and tensions happening, as well as line extensions among other instruments. So we can't just dedicate a team to one string at a time, which kind of slows the process down. Right. The next part of the problem is that we have to get people in to test them, because I am the only in-house bass player and I'm not technically part of that product development team. I get to try them, which is all really cool. But we need to get them around to all the artists that we know and work with, and anyone. Also helpful for people who don't usually play our strings to try them. And that market sampling and beta sampling process is definitely what takes the longest.
Hi, my name is Andres Martin. I'm an Argentinian composer and double bass player living in Tijuana, Mexico. I play in a professional orchestra, also teaching and performing as a soloist in festivals around the world. After trying almost every string set in the market for the last 20 years, I found Kaplan string to be the only ones that can allow me to use all the different colors and techniques I've been working at during my entire career. I use both solo and orchestral sets, and I love the tone, tension, thickness, and the wide range of dynamics and harmonic resonance and timbre I can get with them. For me, they have the perfect balance between thickness and flexibility, making them a true pleasure under my fingers and bow. I'm happy that finally I have a set that makes me happy when I have to play in any situation.
Hey Jason, this is Barry Green calling, the bass player from Cincinnati and then California, and now I'm back in Cincinnati, and we're having a lovely snowstorm right now on the 24th of March. Are you kidding me? Springtime. Anyway, I'm just checking in to talk about how cool not just D'Addario strings are, but the entire organization. I mean, like Lyris and all of the bosses there, they are so supportive of the arts, of music, what they do for music, the music programs around the world with the foundation, and supporting the artists and the many clinics that I have done as well for them and through them and with their support. They are the most amazing human beings. So when I play my D'Addario strings, I not only share music sounds, but I'm spreading the D'Addario message of benevolence and good fortune and dedication to music. I've always enjoyed the D'Addario strings because they're so universally cool. They work for orchestra playing, they work for solo playing. They have so many models that are possible, from a hybrid string for an orchestra player or a solo bass player. You get a little more edge with the hybrid. The mediums are great for most instruments, but I find that sometimes the instrument, not the strings, but the instrument needs a little help in the certain registers. And therefore, it's like a prescription. It's kind of like a person. I mean, like if you're fat or if you're skinny, you're going to wear clothes that make you look better. And so if your bass has a nice high register and needs some help on the bottom, then you want something that helps enhance the bottom. So find the clothes. The cool thing about D'Addario is that they have a lot of clothes in their closet. And so we're going to take all those D'Addario strings out of the closet and fit it on our unique basses and get them all to look really, really cool. All right, Jason, I hope this is helpful. And I know D'Addario is helpful to the world. Bye.
Here's a clip from Lyris Hung, and we're geeking out, really are geeking out, about damping material, what that is, what it does for strings, how that all works.
The longer it takes for some a vibrational system to die down, the longer it takes to start up. So if you have a vibrational system that like rings out and out and out for a long time, it's going to be much harder to start with a bow. And bass players really know this, because if you've ever bowed a very bright pizzicato type string, you'll note it's really hard to articulate. It's hard to get it started, and then you have to strain yourself to really get it to articulate and play fast stuff. Whereas very generally speaking, again, like the darker, more orchestral, traditionally orchestral strings, which are designed for arco, are much easier to bow, much easier to start, but they don't ring out as much. So like you wouldn't necessarily pick them first for like a pizzicato string. So with that in mind, we have to know what we're trying to do first before we determine how much damping material we need to put in. So if we're creating something like a Zyex, which we designed to be a pizzicato string, we're going to have very little damping, if any, in there, and we're going to try to go for brightness, and go for the resonance and the sort of sustain of the string. So Helicore pizzicato is another good example of that. It doesn't have damping in it. It's a very bright string, whereas Helicore orchestral has more damping in it, and it's designed, to have a much shorter sustain. So that material, what we use anyway, is a sort of thick, like a viscous gel type material. And that sits between the core and the first winding. And that just basically stays there. And you can create the idea of damping from a whole bunch of things. So any two materials kind of rubbing against each other, interacting with each other, will naturally start to dissipate the vibration. So you have one winding on a core. That winding and that core are going to, naturally create a little bit of damping, probably very little damping. But then if you throw another winding on top of that, it's going to create more damping, and so on and so forth. And if you if you put on like a soft material on there, for instance, if you did a nylon, or if you wrapped some nylon on that string, that would create more damping. It kind of has the effect of like actually dampening the vibration of the string.
Hello, my name is Claus Freudenstein. I'm a double bass player and educator based in Germany. I'm working in quite a lot of fields. So one is I'm the founder of the double bass quartet, the Bassmonsters. We are playing rock tunes on 4 double basses in a very chamber music way. And we're about to release a new CD with many real bass monsters playing on it, and I'm already very much looking forward to launch it. Have a look on the Bassmonsters website. Also, beside this, I'm the inventor of the mini bass. 15 years ago, I invented the so-called Freudenstein mini bass that you can also check out on minibass.com. Beside this, I'm also the writer of music. I have published some books. One is a method for the mini bass. It's called Mini Bass, available in Hofmeister Publishing, also in English language. And if you know someone that likes it in Chinese language, there is also an issue published. Also, I have published a piece called The Bass Hymn that should include many different player levels. So in one piece, you can play with professors on the double bass standing beside mini bass players that just started to play. Also, I have published a book called It's Christmas, with Christmas carols for double bass quartet, and soon there will be out a new piece called The Wolf, and also in this book is the piece Struct. Well, I'm also the organizer and artistic director of the Bavarian Bass Days that you can also check out in the internet, an international bass meeting with many styles. I was on the board of directors of the ISP for some years. Now I'm in the advisory board of the ISP, and for the ISP I also wrote articles in the bass world. I do international master classes and mini bass workshops, so you see it's a lot of stuff. Also my project Crossing Borders, which is a project that includes solo music for double bass and piano, that is all more or less arranged or written for me. And of course, beside this, I'm a teacher. I'm teaching quite a lot of students in all ages. And for all of that, I'm using Kaplan strings from D'Addario. I really love them, and also my colleagues in the Bassmonsters are very happy with them. We are using the Kaplan solo in the Bassmonsters, and for all the rest of the things that I'm doing, I use the Kaplan Heavy that really give me a powerful, deep and clear projecting sound. So far, that's it from my side. Thank you for listening. Claus Freudenstein.
Hey Jason Heath, this is Daniel Kimbro with the Jerry Douglas Band, among others. It's nice to talk to you again, man. I wanted to talk about D'Addario strings for just a second. Any working bass player these days knows that versatility seems to be the key. A lot of folks that we're playing for aren't just playing one type of music, and a lot of times if you're gigging around town, you're playing a different style of music each and every night. The thing I like very much about D'Addario strings is throughout their line, from the Kaplan to the Helicore stuff, it's all really useful in different settings. But if I don't have time to change strings to get a particular specific sound that I want, I can get what I need out of just about any of their models. I really like the Kaplans for Arco stuff, and for older, more punchy, straight ahead jazz gigs or even bluegrass gigs. They just don't have a lot of afternote pits zing. And that's really useful, especially in front of microphones in the studio. And again, they just start so easily with the bow. And then right now on my instrument, I have the Helicore hybrid string on. And I went away from the Helicores for a long time. But I swear, man, they just bow so easily. I don't know if they've changed the damping in them or what it is, but lately I've just been really loving that string, because with the Jerry Douglas Band, we've got a 7-piece band. We've got a full drum kit and 2 electric guitar amps and 2 horn players and a fiddle player that sounds like a Hammond B3 organ. And so I need a lot of sustain. I need a lot of punch. And that's what those Helicore hybrids give me. And I will also say that for a few gigs, I've been trying out the Zyex string, which is a synthetic core string, as many of your listeners will probably already know. But the Zyex is a really cool string. It took me a minute to get used to it, honestly, but it's very similar to an obligato, I would think, or maybe even an Ava Perazzi, if those are models of strings that maybe some folks are a little more familiar with. Again, they start easily with the bow, but they have a really cool, just sort of gut-like attack to them. And I'm looking forward to experimenting with those a little more whenever things calm down and I've got time to throw a few different sets on the bass and see what's what. But anyway, I hope that helps. I would also like to add that Lyris and all the folks at D'Addario have been just so kind and gracious. And, you know, anytime I have a question, I get a response literally within, minutes. Anytime I need to order new strings, they're right back to me ASAP. And that's really comforting for a touring musician. I've had them ship things to me on the road. I've had things waiting for me as soon as I got home because I needed to change strings quickly and get to the next tour. So I can't say enough about the people behind the scenes at D'Addario, let alone the quality strings that they produce. I hope you're doing well out there in San Fran, Jason. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for having me on again. See you later.
By the way, Daniel was recently nominated for a Grammy, so add that to the list of accolades for Daniel. What a fantastic player. And by the way, follow along with Daniel on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook if you haven't. He posts just great stuff all the time, and it's really fun to be kind of virtually on the road with him. Next up is a clip again from Sabrina Brengel about the difference between Zyex and Helicore jazz strings. Interesting clip. Here we go.
Yeah, and I think Zyex is the other string that I would think of as a jazz string that would get a lot of jazz use. How is the tone? How would you describe to someone who hasn't played with them? How would you describe the tone of the Zyex and the tone of the Helicore pizzicato? How do they differ in tone and response?
Ooh, interesting. I would say the Helicore strings are probably louder. So depending on what kind of setting you're in, that might be something you want. And the Helicore ones are also clearer. I won't say like lighter or brighter, but just a more direct sound.
Hey, this is Danny Ziemann. I'm a jazz bass player currently living in Basel, Switzerland, originally from Western New York region, Buffalo, and then Rochester. I tour throughout the States, throughout Europe, Asia, playing various styles of jazz, Lindy hops, early swing, more modern jazz. Currently, again, living in Switzerland for the next year or so. Right now, I'm playing the D'Addario Helicore pizzicatos, and I've been using them for about 7 years now, and I have to say they are my favorite string for jazz. The clarity in sound and tone, intonation, everything is just exactly what I'm looking for. They're not too bright. There's a really wonderful musical sustain that you can manipulate, for when you're playing ballads or more up-tempo tunes. I mean, just the range of color and control that you get out of them is just exactly what I need. It suits my needs perfectly, and I definitely encourage anyone who's looking for a new string to check out or wants something that is great for jazz and gives you more of that sustained sound. Definitely consider the Helicore pizzicatos.
Hey everybody, this is Kieran Hanlon from the State University of New York at Fredonia. Coming to you all today to contribute to Jason's blog about D'Addario strings. So I teach here at Fredonia. I play a lot of different kinds of music. I'm a very serious orchestra guy. I play principal bass for the Erie Philharmonic, and I'm a substitute for Detroit, Chautauqua Symphony, Buffalo Philharmonic, Rochester Philharmonic. I do a lot of jazz playing in the region here, and also, of course, solo playing as well for faculty recitals, things of that nature here at Fredonia. So I really need strings that can do a lot of different things. It's one of my favorite things about the D'Addario Helicore orchestras, which is what I play on primarily. So I am a D'Addario artist. I chose to do that for a number of different reasons, which will sort of be outlined here as I go on. So I have two instruments. I have a really big 7/8 bass that I use for classical playing, solo and orchestra. That's a Mike Griffin bass. And that bass has a beautiful dark tone naturally. And so it can take a brighter string, and it actually needs a brighter string to gain clarity, particularly in the low register. So I use the Helicore orchestras on it, medium tension. I've tried heavy tension. That was a little bit too much, and I think light would be a little bit too floppy. So the medium is totally great for that. So if you have a big dark bass, the Helicore orchestras tend to work out really well. A number of my students here play on very nice Shen instruments, and they tend to enjoy the Helicore orchestras as well. Now, one of the things we all need to think about, like I was just saying, I have a big dark bass, I need a brighter string. If you have the inverse situation where you have an instrument that's pretty bright naturally, then it can be nice to try something like a D'Addario Kaplan, which is a little darker and will just kind of add a little bit of warmth if your instrument is naturally pretty bright. So that's my classical setup. On my jazz instrument is a Christopher bass, shop model. It's a 5-string actually, which is really fun. And at this point, I'm using Helicore orchestras on that as well. I did use the pizzicatos for a long time, and I really still enjoy those strings, but I was involved with some more swing era playing, and I was looking for basically not as much sustain, so I could really control the notes for the groove, the kind of walking playing, that sort of old school short note kind of thing. And the pizzicatos were a little bit too much sustain for that. I really did enjoy the strings though, particularly for soloing. So, sometimes if I'm doing something more modern, I will switch back to those guys. Additional things about D'Addario that are great: customer service. Lyris Hung is the rep, that I deal with, and she's great, easy to get in touch with, always, very quick with getting strings out. The price of the strings, I think, really can't be beaten. It's just a really, really great value. And also, the company's been very supportive of events here at Fredonia, namely Bass Fest, which is our big kind of yearly mini ISB, you might say, we have for a day with a couple of usually very high-profile guests. And I'm 100% sure that without the company's support, that event would not be happening. So, love the company, love the product, really a big fan. So if you have any further questions about the strings or the company or whatever, feel free to shoot an email to me. You can find my email on the Fredonia website. Okay, take care.
I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into D'Addario strings. And part of the cool thing that the bass community has is just this camaraderie and this willingness to share. And it's just so great to have these folks jump on board, totally willing to contribute their time and share their thoughts, and all past podcast guests. So if you want to check out their in-depth interviews and multiple interviews for some of them, go to the show notes for this episode at contrabassconversations.com, and you can click on the links to get to those episodes. And if you'd like to check out Helicore, Zyex, Kaplan, these bass strings from D'Addario, contrabassconversations.com/strings will take you there. Contrabass Conversations is produced by Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy, Trevor Jones, and Mitch Mooring. And if you're looking for a double bass in the Dallas area, you got to check out Mitch's site, mitchmooring.com. I'm your host, Jason Heath, coming to you each and every week from San Francisco, California, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.